coming up in just a moment.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Sunday, December 28th. Your reader for this hour will be Edwin J. Vieira, and for the next hour will be Ron Bickelman. And first, a look at the weather. Periods of rain today and a high of 43. More rain coming in tonight with a low of 33. To start off the work week, it'll be a couple of snow showers with a total stormfall of 1 to 3 inches and a high of 43. But temperatures will be falling into the mid-20s, closing out with a low of 16. Colder on Tuesday with the snow shower or two, high of 25 and a low of 22. More flurries into Wednesday with a high of 27 and a low 17 to close out 2025. For New Year's Day, we'll see it be cold with a little snow with a high of 20 and a low of 4. Rather frigid on Friday, rather cloudy and frigid, it'll be high of 17, a low of 11. And to start off the first weekend of 2026, cold with some sun with a high of 22 and a low of 5. Now, here's our first story. Leaders who fuel rumors are imperiling accountability. Rumors flew in the hours after a shooting at Brown University killed 2 students on December 13th. One falsehood had it that one of the victims, a leader of the college Republican club, was, quote, targeted for her conservative beliefs, hunted and killed in cold blood. Another was that it had been a terrorist attack, a claim that made the rounds when a Palestinian student was identified as a possible suspect 2 days later and hounded on the internet. A churn of disinformation after a major news event is hardly a surprise anymore, but its spread after the Brown killings was not limited to the dark fringes of the internet. It was fueled by prominent figures in business and government whose false statements and politically charged innuendo compounded public anger and anxiety. That's raised new alarms about the nature and quality of public discourse and whether there's any consequence for those who degrade it or for the social media platforms that reward it. Renee DiResta, an associate research professor at Georgetown University, referred to the attacks on the falsely accused student as a, quote, internet witch hunt, where the rumor mill intersected with a political propaganda machine. Political leaders, statesmen who once served as a firebreak against baser instincts increasingly see an opportunity to look receptive to the base, so they add kindling instead, she wrote in a newsletter on Substack on Tuesday. Those who spread rumors about the motives behind the shooting included at least 2 members of Congress, Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama and Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida, both Republicans. The Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Justice Department, Harmeet Dillon, called the falsely accused student's political activism, quote, concerning. Bill Ackman, the billionaire owner of the Pershing Square hedge fund, amplified that narrative, as did Sean McGuire, a partner at Sequoia Capital who has drawn attention recently for public statements about Islam. Our elite universities have become terror breeding grounds, McGuire wrote, only days before the state police identified the attacker not as a terrorist, but as a disgruntled scientist from Portugal. He was found dead December 18th in a storage unit in New Hampshire, according to authorities. The fevered, baseless speculation became so intense that police officials warned it was disrupting their work. The endless barrage of misinformation, disinformation, rumors, leaks, and clickbait were not helpful in this investigation, the superintendent of the Rhode Island State Police, Colonel Darnell S. Weaver, said after the student's name spread online. Distractions and unfounded criticisms do not support this work. They complicate it. Today's algorithmically driven, attention-hungry information ecosystem does more than distort reality. It also stokes anger that divides society along political or social lines. The terrorist attack on Bondi Beach in Sydney a day after the Brown shooting prompted a similar torrent of disinformation. For those caught in the vortex of an internet storm, fairly or not, the experience can be traumatic. The Brown student, who did not immediately respond to a request for an interview, described the experience as a, quote, unimaginable nightmare in a statement released by lawyers now representing him. The statement said he had received nonstop death threats and hate speech. The student's name appears to have surfaced December 15th according to a fact check by Agence France Presse, an anonymous account on social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, run by a group of users calling themselves the Dindu Crew, posted a photograph released by the police alongside one of the student, apparently from news coverage of protests on campus. More photographs followed, and soon other accounts piled on. Nearly 5,000 different posts appeared with the name over the next 4 days, spiking December 17th, according to Tweetbinder, a company that analyzes content on X. Those were reposted 130,000 times. According to the statement by the students' lawyers, police contacted them after the posts appeared, which likely distracted law enforcement from pursuing legitimate leads. With the baseless speculation spreading online, the university began removing references to the student, which the lawyers said was a standard precaution to ensure the personal safety of any individual who has been doxxed. That fueled more baseless rumors that the university was involved in some kind of cover-up, including one aired by Representative Paulina Luna. I find it very suspicious that information has been removed from Brown University's website following the tragic shooting, she wrote in a post that, according to X, was viewed more than 300,000 times. Tuberville told podcaster Benny Johnson on December 16th he was certain the shooting had been a political attack targeting one of the students killed, Ella Cobbs Cook, who's from Alabama. Johnson also took to X to question why references to the student were taken off Brown's website. Luna and Tuberville did not respond to questions about their statements. Imran Ahmed, the CEO of the Center for Countering Digital Hate, an organization that monitors harmful content online, compared the information ecosystem to philosopher Thomas Hobbes' view that life without government would be, quote, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Social media provides this sort of Hobbesian lens on the world where no one can be trusted, he said. You can't trust your authorities or the government. You can't trust your neighbor. Ahmed spoke in an interview before the State Department announced Tuesday that it would bar him and 4 other prominent Europeans from traveling to the United States. Secretary of State Marco Rubio accused them of trying to, quote, coerce American platforms to censor, demonetize, and suppress American viewpoints they oppose, a claim they've disputed. From President Trump down, administration officials have embraced the meme culture of social media to communicate their message. At times, they've done so effectively. At other times, the cost has been truthfulness. Dylan, like most of those who misidentified the motive of the attack, appears to have made no effort to set the record straight. The Justice Department did not respond to a request to ask her about the post. Ackman, who used X to turn himself into a celebrity far beyond the investment world, declined through a spokesperson to comment about sharing posts that amplified false claims. McGuire similarly did not respond to requests for comment. Only the original poster acknowledged that the student was not a suspect, though the user showed little remorse. Contacted through a website linked to the group, the account replied on X, I said he fit the description. After they said it's not him, I publicly stated, good enough for me. Ahmed noted that there was little consequence for being wrong. On the contrary, the business model of social media rewards those whose content spreads widely encourages more sensational or provocative content. We're being warned again and again, and we're not listening to what we're being told, which is that we're no longer in control of our information ecosystem, he said. That can lead to serious civil unrest that might lead to the mass loss of lives. New black leaders discuss historic feat. When John Davis, a candidate for Amherst Town Board, ran into Tiffany Lewis, who was running for Cheektowaga Town Board at the Erie County Democratic Party's election night gathering at the town ballroom in Buffalo, his message of congratulations left something to be desired. I saw John. He was like, I didn't think you were going to win, Lewis recalled in a recent interview, laughing. I did, Davis continued, smiling ruefully at the memory. That was the first thing that came out of my mouth. And then, Lewis added, I said, we both did. They did, and they broke some barriers along the way. Davis, age 45, an engineer, is the first black person elected to the Amherst Town Board. Lewis, age 50, and the founder of and president of the nonprofit Confident Girl Mentoring Program, is the first black woman elected to the Cheektowaga Town Board. When their terms began Thursday, they will join some rare examples of diversity in Erie County's suburban governments, including former supervisor Satish Mohan, a native of India, Grand Island Town Board member Jose Garcia, the son of Spanish father and a Cuban mother, and Kenmore Village trustee Brittany Jones, who is black. Davis, a native of Terre Haute, Indiana, and Lewis, who's from Memphis, Tennessee, said they hope their victories encourage other people who may not have considered running for office to do it. The Buffalo News recently sat down with them for a joint interview at a Williamsville coffee shop. This conversation has been lightly edited and condensed for publication. Why did you run for office? From Davis, I didn't think to actually run until about 2020, when I saw the craziness going on with Donald Trump and all the divisiveness in politics. I know that everybody out here is not this extreme, not the people I know or work with, no matter what color they are. So I said, if I'm able to just connect and look people in the eye and talk with them and get to know them, I said, I can win. Lewis says, when the opportunity came to me, like, do you want to get on board? I honestly got bamboozled. Seriously? Because I didn't know that it was an actual council seat. I thought it was just going to be appointed to some board, But I knew it was my time. It was my calling. Just because, like John said, I am a people person and I really have a heart for the people. Were you worried race would be an obstacle? Davis says, I mean, you're going to have opposition no matter what color you are, but I wanted to know maybe how nasty it was going to get. I saw some things that kind of were dog whistles. I was concerned about it, but it didn't let it stop me. I wasn't afraid of it. I mean, it's something I've always had to deal with. I was more concerned about maybe my family than me. And Lewis says, people talked about my hair. People talked about, will the real Tiffany show up? Because, listen, I'm culturally diverse. I am. But that's all about being who I am as a human. But one thing I didn't do was run a reactive campaign. I didn't want the words the people said to really affect me in that way. We have to look opposition in its face. We have to continue on anyway. Did you highlight the historic nature of your campaigns in your messaging? Davis says, I was just focused on infrastructure, the core things that run a town, and those are things I understood as an engineer. So I focused on that and let other people talk about the significance of it. I didn't have to because if people were from here for a long time, they know they've never seen anybody like me knock on their door and say, hey, I'm running for councilman. Lewis says, what I wanted to do, I wanted to lead with making the roads safer, infrastructure, economic stability, making sure our youth were at the center, our seniors are taken care of. So I wanted to put the real logistical things in first. And then when we win, like we did now, let's talk about it. How did the voters react to you? Davis says, people would say, are you sure you want to do this? I would get a lot of that. And then I would get people who would be really excited, black and white. They would be like, this is amazing. We're all rooting for you. People would read articles about me in the Bee or somewhere else, and they'd just be excited when I'd come to the door. Lewis says, I remember this one particular day when I was canvassing. I was really full of doubt. I went to this one lady's door, and she said, you're at my door, and I'm going to cry, she said. You gave me hope. She said, I've never had a reason to vote until you came to my door. And then another lady, she's an older lady, maybe I'll run next year, she said. What was election night like? From Davis, when I heard you, I said, Tiffany won? What? And that was a really good night. It was one of the best nights I've had in a while, and it was a long day. I was up till 5 a.m. and we stayed out and we hung out, and it was great. From Lewis, I walked to the stage. They were like, we don't have time for you to speak. And they're like, no, you got to give her some time. They gave me 30 seconds, and it was the best 30 seconds of my life. It just felt so good. It felt so good for the people. And I still carry that emotion with me today just because it's something that I would never forget. We did that. We did that. We did it. What do your victories mean? From Davis, I think it's huge. It's a groundbreaking moment. It shows progress, and it really just cements that we've come so far as a people, and we are a society that supports and loves one another. From Lewis, this win means that possibilities are endless, and it means that dreams are now a reality in the town of Cheektowaga. And lastly, what message do you hope this sends to other people of color? From Davis, Black Americans have a place in this country, and I think we should take it with great pride. We should be a part of our government. We should understand our government. We should have a say and a seat at the table, and I do hope it inspires others to want to be part of government. And from Lewis, I believe seeing me on the town board doesn't just resonate with people of the Black community. I believe it resonates with all community members, just to make sure that they know that listen should come. She could do it. We can too. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time for our morning listeners is 9:14 a.m., and for our afternoon listeners, the time is 4:14 p.m. And now on to a front page feature. Ryan's election comes with big expectations, changes ahead for downtown, the diocese, and the environment. Sean Ryan's primary win in June paved his way to become Buffalo's first new mayor in 20 years. So the most impactful story of 2025 comes with expectations Ryan will affect the next 4 years too, from filling potholes in every direction to digging the city out of its financial hole. They never lost faith that a better Buffalo was possible, Ryan said of residents after his resounding Election Day victory. Their faith sure seemed tested. 5 years after COVID, downtown is still reeling. Developer Douglas Jamal scaled back his city holdings and also pulled out of the Boulevard Mall project in Amherst. The Kensington project went back to the drawing board. Lead in water, homes, and schools has remained a stubborn environmental problem. Abrupt funding cuts and policy upheavals under the Trump administration caused problems for local colleges and public health agencies. As for the religious faithful, the cuts and upheavals from a Catholic Church diocese in bankruptcy did not come as a surprise, but the pain over a plan to close about 50 churches prompted Vatican appeals, with some succeeding. For the Buffalo Bills, always big news here. Construction of its more than $2 billion stadium remained on schedule to open next season, but getting a ticket could be tough, and the spotlight shined beyond the Bills from all the movies made here. Here are the 10 most impactful stories of 2025, as judged by the Buffalo News' reporters and editors. First off, a new mayor. Sean Ryan beating Mayor Christopher Scanlon by 11 percentage points in the June Democratic primary, a wider margin than expected in the first open primary race in 20 years. Ryan won more than 70% of the vote in his November race against Michael Gaynor and James Gardner. The 14-year veteran of the New York State Legislature projected optimism even as he prepared to inherit a cratered budget, crumbling infrastructure, and unsolved problems of poverty and high levels of lead on the East Side. We're going to endeavor to do smart public policy to serve the citizens of the city of Buffalo in the best, most efficient ways, Ryan said. But we will stumble. We are human and we will make mistakes. We'll say we made a mistake instead of run from it and move on. So that's the new era that we want to bring in. Feeling the Trump effect. Funding cuts and policy shifts reverberated in Western New York's colleges and federal agencies and public health departments. While Democratic lawmakers complained of, quote, mindless cuts, Republicans supported the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency, pointed out that the president was delivering on his campaign promises, too. The American people knew this was something that would happen if he was elected, and Trump's overwhelming win in November proves that the American people support the mission of DOGE, said Republican Representative Nick Langworthy. In the meantime, Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrests unsettled the community and the workforce, and even a federal judge. Being taken away like this without any notice to anyone as to why, as a student of history, scares the hell out of me, said U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo at a hearing for an arrested Venezuelan man. There are due process rights in this country. If we start letting those rights be ignored for folks who think we are non-citizens and subject to deportation, we put all of us at risk. And that is scary stuff. A Pope and a Prayer. Bishop Michael W. Fisher met with Pope Leo XIV in Rome Leo XIV in Rome in October to explain the Catholic Diocese's efforts to exit Chapter 11 bankruptcy and restructure down dozens of parishes. The bishop described Pope Leo as, quote, very supportive of his efforts. Some parishioners looked to the Vatican for support as well, seeking to block the bishop's decrees of closing their churches. The protests and prayers worked for some, as the Vatican revoked decrees that Fisher had issued to merge parishes in Clarence, Jamestown, and Orchard Park. The diocese is trying to navigate its way out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. At the same time, it moves to reduce 160 parishes by half and close several dozen churches through its Road to Renewal effort. The Buffalo Diocese met a judge's deadline in October for filing a plan of reorganization to exit Chapter 11 bankruptcy. License to cheer. The chance for Buffalo Bills fans to buy a personal seat license for season tickets at the new Highmark Stadium is over. The Bills have sold out their PSL inventory at the new stadium, and they'll be taking 75% of their current season ticket holders with them when they moved across the street next season. Since the team sold out of the PSLs, there'll be only a few thousand seats left in the new stadium, with most of those reserved for visiting teams, the NFL, and Bills players' families. That means every seat at the new stadium could be spoken for, so individual ticket sales through the Bills box office may become a thing of the past. Jamal's bubble bursts. Douglas Jamal says he's not giving up on Buffalo, but his optimism's fading. I'm not as bullish as I once was about Buffalo, Jamal said. I don't feel as if Buffalo is heading in one solid forward march direction. I don't think we function as a community or a city. Jamal's been the most active developer in the Buffalo-Niagara region since arriving in 2016, filling the once vacant Seneca One Tower in downtown Buffalo with tenants and tackling other projects that local developers wouldn't touch. But his progress stalled after the COVID-19 pandemic, which cut the number of workers coming downtown. Interest rates and construction costs rose, making projects more expensive and harder to finance. As projects paused, Jamal still had to pay taxes, insurance, maintenance, and other costs. Jamal scaled back his holdings, sold the Boulevard Mall, and withdrew from the Richardson Hotel and Richardson Olmsted complex. The Statler project has languished. State and local governments need to provide more financial assistance to help overcome higher borrowing expenses and rising costs, he said. Without it, he said, projects won't get done. I'm very committed when I start something, but where's the help? He asked. How do we get over this hump? One private guy can't do it all. And downtown struggles. With the loss of the lunch crowd following the pandemic, fewer restaurants in Buffalo are serving the noontime sit-down crowd. The AMC movie theater at the Market Arcade downtown will close by the end of this year. Buffalo Grand Hotel owner Harry Stinson, who's been struggling for 5 years to reopen the city's largest hotel, wants the city to back off its plan to seize the empty 486-room downtown area. The city's business landscape has struggled to regain momentum since everything shut down in March of 2020. Estimates from University of Buffalo urban planners and city officials are troubling. About 15,000 to 20,000 fewer people are going downtown daily. About 1/5 of downtown office space is empty, and there are 1/3 fewer workers in downtown office buildings. Around 1/3 of downtown's more than 200 storefronts are vacant. For downtown, Sean Ryan said he will develop a plan that will not rely on the success or failure of any single project, but will work with developers on projects that fit into a larger strategy and not let dormant properties fester for decades like the Statler and AM&A's buildings. Vibrant cities will have projects that fail all the time, Ryan said. But as long as a plan is moving forward, that project doesn't have to become a public liability. Returning some fun downtown would help too. Ryan reminded voters during his mayoral campaign, recalling big events from the past, like Thursday in the Square, that brought crowds to downtown. And now on to world news. Thailand attacks are cast as a war on, quote, scam army. 2 weeks ago, Phip Surmian had just gotten up in her dorm in a scam center in the Cambodian border town of Osmash when she said her supervisor ran in shouting, "The bombs are coming." 2 Thai warplanes were circling overhead. Phip, a Cambodian who was running for safety when she heard an explosion behind her, she said she saw a security guard dead on the ground, bleeding with pieces of shrapnel in his chest. 2 other guards were also injured. Phip, age 20, delivered food within the sprawling compound to the people, all foreigners, who ran the scams and were confined to their desks and dorms. The rules remained the same when the bombs fell. The foreign workers weren't allowed to leave, she said. The hostilities were part of the latest flare-up of a decades-old border dispute between Thailand and Cambodia. Thailand said that December 8th attack was a strike on a complex that was a covert military hub housing drones. In the following days, it bombed at least 5 other compounds that it said were military targets, but locals described them as scam centers, which in recent years have become a pillar of Cambodia's economy. Cambodia has said 4, quote, casinos were damaged by the Thais, but has not released any information on casualties. Pen Bona, a spokesperson for the Cambodian government, rejected Thailand's accusations that these were military hubs. Thailand always finds excuses to violate Cambodia's territory and attack civilians and infrastructure, he said. It's unacceptable. This second round of deadly clashes this year between Thailand and Cambodia has been more intense, with dozens dead and more than 750,000 people displaced. Now, Thailand is casting the border conflict as a war against the scam army. The messaging is an effort to cast Thailand as a force for good against a sprawling industry that has swindled billions of dollars from unsuspecting victims the world over, even as some of its own politicians have come under scrutiny for their links to Cambodia's scam kingpins. But the shelling of these compounds has alarmed the United Nations, and activists who warned thousands of people trafficked to the compounds for forced labor have been put at further risk. Thailand, they argue, is targeting places that are known to be populated with thousands of people, and Cambodia has done little to help these workers who've been trapped there in the first place. Neither government wants to answer the question of where are the victims, said Jacob Sims, a visiting fellow at Harvard University's Asia Center and an expert on transnational crime. One influential Thai politician, Nguyen Chuchabo, who is the mentor of the caretaker Prime Minister, Onutin Sharnarakul, said he believed the catalyst for this month's fighting was the Thai government's move to freeze roughly $300 million worth of assets of scammers with alleged links to Cambodia's de facto leader Hun Sen and his son, Prime Minister Hun Manet. It's not just scammers creating problems for Thais, they create problems for the whole world, he said. Penn said Thailand has used the scam issue to create trouble with Cambodia for political popularity. The toll from the Thai airstrikes at the Osmash compound remains unclear, but videos posted on social media showed scores of people leaving the complex with their luggage. Some were surveilled by their Chinese bosses and told them they had to continue working for them, according to the managers in the compound, who asked for anonymity for fear of retribution. Many of the Cambodians working there made their way to makeshift shelters, where they sleep in fields under plastic tarps. In Siem Reap province, they have had to move from place to place because the Thais are bombing bridges near these evacuation sites. A security guard who kept watch outside an office inside the Osmash compound echoed Phipps' account. He declined to be named because he feared losing his job, but said his bosses had locked up the foreign workers when the shelling started. He said he worked at a building that the Cambodians call Animal Farm, and that he guarded an office of 15 people, mainly Vietnamese and Chinese. The workers had to ask him permission to use the toilets, and were only allowed to leave to have lunch at the restaurants within the compound. 6 workers inside of it detailed a range of human rights abuses that they witnessed at work. They spoke of seeing numerous workers beaten with shock batons, whipped with belts, made to stand for hours in the sun while forced to carry barrels of water on their backs for hours, and injected with a serum. One of them reported seeing dozens of people beaten to death. Their claims could not be independently verified, but they fit a pattern that's been documented by rights activists. Air Chief Marshal Prapas Surnchari, the Assistant Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Thai Air Force, said, "The Thai military cares a lot about civilians stranded in these buildings. We have to answer for our actions, not just to the media but to the world," he said. He declined to provide proof that these buildings were military hubs, saying the information was classified, but he said that the attacks were part of a plan to use force to end the conflict. Myanmar's civil war is pushing infectious disease over the border. Greece Say recognized the suspicious spots down her toddler's throat only from her textbooks. She'd been working as a nurse for more than a decade, but had never confronted with a case of diphtheria, a potentially fatal disease. "This isn't something we've seen here before," she said. The Mae Tao Clinic, where Greece Say works, opened in the Thai border town of Mae Sot in 1989 after a military crackdown in Myanmar, also known as Burma, drove many people to seek shelter in the borderlands. On a recent day at the hospital, Burmese women cradled fussy babies, clutched plastic bags with their medical records, and patiently waited their turn. The number of patients at the hospital has soared in recent years as a coup in Myanmar ignited a civil war, which plunged the nation's health system into collapse. Hospitals have been bombed, doctors have gone on strike, budgets have been cut, and civilians have fled to neighboring nations. The Myanmar border is so close to the Mae Tao Clinic that sometimes medical staff can hear the artillery and see smoke billowing in the sky. Doctors say they are trying to handle as many patients as they can to reduce the burden on the Thai health system. On bad days, that can mean treating double the number of the sick than before the war. Myanmar's healthcare system has been hollowed out over decades by juntas that prioritize weapons over health budgets. While there was some progress on disease control during a civilian government, this was reversed when the military took back power in 2021. Myanmar is among the countries with the largest number of children who've never been vaccinated, according to UNICEF. Preventable diseases, such as whooping cough and diphtheria, have been on the rise, according to doctors working in Myanmar. The military is even targeting the health system. The World Health Organization has documented 67 attacks on health facilities this year. An airstrike on a 300-bed hospital in a rebel stronghold near Myanmar's border with Bangladesh killed at least 34 people this month. Villagers and rebel forces are seeking shelters from airstrikes in Myanmar's jungles, which are infested with mosquitoes that carry diseases like malaria. Incredulous doctors in Myanmar say they treat patients who have suffered from malaria up to 20 times. Neighboring Thailand was on track to eradicate malaria by 2024, according to a WHO report in 2021. But the coup in Myanmar that year derailed progress. With the escalating conflict, the number of malaria cases instead shot up again. Uprooted by fighting, many of Myanmar's more than 3 million displaced people are living in rebel-controlled areas on the periphery of the country, where their medical treatment is often disrupted. They also lose access to disease prevention measures such as mosquito nets, condoms, and masks. Many people die not because of the fighting, but because of illness, said Ai Thida, who supports HIV patients at the Mae Tao Clinic. In the same Thai border town is Masat General Hospital, a bustling facility that has been treating Myanmar citizens for decades. The war has driven up to its caseload by 50%, prompting burned-out doctors to resign. But the hospital doesn't have much of a choice but to treat Burmese patients, according to the deputy director, Dr. Rojinsak Thongkramchuan. If we don't care about Myanmar's health situation, we may face re-emerging diseases, such as polio, he said. A case of the disease, which can paralyze patients, was confirmed this summer in northeastern Myanmar. Communicable diseases know no borders. Last year, cholera broke out in one of the many scam centers that thrive in Myanmar's lawless conflict zone. Hundreds fell sick, and Thailand sent medicines to stop the deadly disease from spilling across the border. Still, at least 4 people contracted it, including 2 Thai citizens. This crisis should keep people awake at night, said Dr. Vorovit Suwanchavik, an epidemiologist who's worked at the Thai-Myanmar border. It's not a huge stretch to say the vast majority of Burma is now an epidemiological blind spot. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time for our morning listeners is 9:31 a.m., and for our afternoon listeners, the time is 4:31 p.m. And now on to national news. Some GOP senators urging hard line against Putin. As President Donald Trump prepares for an expected meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky today, he's facing some pressure from within his party to take a tough approach to Russian President Vladimir Putin. 3 Republican senators joined 5 of their Democratic colleagues in issuing a statement Thursday that described Putin as, quote, a ruthless murderer who has no interest in peace and who cannot be trusted. It decried Russian attacks on Ukraine that continued over the Christmas holiday. The statement was signed by Republican Senators John Barrasso of Wyoming, Jerry Moran of Kansas, and Tom Tillis of North Carolina. It did not criticize Trump's handling of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, and it was not joined by the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Jim Risch, Republican of Idaho, a close Trump ally, nor by most of the GOP's members on that committee. Risch's office did not immediately reply to a request for comment. Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, the top Democrat on the committee, led the statement. Still, it took a harsher tone toward Putin than Trump has often used. Although Trump has at times berated Putin on social media, urging him to stop his military assault on Ukraine, he's also boasted about their positive relationship, saying he gets along well with the Russian leader. He's repeatedly threatened severe sanctions on the Russians to urge them to make peace, but he's followed through only occasionally. It bears repeating that President Zelensky agreed to a Christmas truce, but Putin declined, yet he directs soldiers to continue to commit brutal crimes of aggression on one of Christianity's holiest days, said the statement, which was also signed by Senator Angus King, an independent of Maine, and by Democratic Senators Jackie Rosen of Nevada, Chris Coons of Delaware, Jeff Merkley of Oregon, and Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. Alex Conant, a Republican strategist, said senators in the party had displayed, quote, time and time again they were more skeptical of Putin than the president might be inclined to be. The statement appeared to be aimed at offering Zelensky's bipartisan support at a crucial moment, Conant said. Trump's love affair with his own name lands him in the company of dictators. What's in a name? William Shakespeare asked. Donald Trump's answer is me. Trump's long love affair with his own name and likeness is peaking in a second term. There's now the Donald J. Trump United States Institute of Peace and the Trump Kennedy Center, the performing arts venue. There are Trump accounts for newborn babies and Trump gold cards for wealthy U.S. residency seekers. Giant Trump portraits have been hung from select federal buildings, and smaller ones will appear on national park passes. Coming soon, a so-called Trump class of battleships for the Navy and a Trump commemorative coin to celebrate the nation's 250th anniversary. This, of course, is the second chapter of Trump as eponymous self-promoter. In the first, he's put his name on projects he built as a developer, and in the 2000s, largely based on his fame as host of The Apprentice, he turned his name alone into a lucrative product, attaching it to steaks and wine and other get-rich seminars and resorts, and on and on. Not all ventures left satisfied customers behind. Trump University paid settlements to students claiming fraud, but he reaped millions by staying true to his advice he posted on Twitter in 2013. Quote, "Remember, if you don't promote yourself, then no one else will." That marketing strategy endures as he now pursues the golden legacy, as he believes he deserves. But as Trump normalizes norm-shattering, this self-aggrandizement, unheard of in the history of the presidency, puts him in the company of conquerors and dictators. Alexander the Great did it, naming around 70 cities after himself in the empire as he assembled in the 4th century BC through military might and massacres. So did Joseph Stalin, the Soviet leader, who renamed Tsatsurian as Stalingrad while also naming other cities across his domain for himself. Napoleon rechristened the Louvre as the Musée Napoléon when he was in power. Plazas named Adolf Hitler Platz proliferated in Germany and territories occupied by the Nazis. Mao Zedong's cult of personality was all-inclusive, including his giant portrait overlooking Tiananmen Square and his little red book of sayings that was required reading and memorization across China. The common move for leaders inclined to such self-aggrandizement is to name spaces and structures after themselves. The former ruler of Turkmenistan went an audacious step further, once naming a chunk of time, an entire month, after himself. Saparmat Niyazov, the dictator who led the former Soviet Republic from 1991 to 2006, first gave himself the title of Turkmenbashi, meaning the father of Turkmen, and then applied it to the month of January. Niyazov also renamed April for his mother and October for one of his books. Of course, all leaders want lasting recognition. In the United States, past presidents have raised money for elaborate presidential libraries documenting their administration. It's about fame, and fame is immortality, said Mayos Arizona, an emeritus professor of cultural geography at the United States of Haifa, who studied the University of Haifa, who studied the political and historical significance of naming streets and other public spaces. But there's a clear line between leaders memorialized after death or departure from office and those who impose their names while in power or get loyalists to do it. In the 20th century, it's associated with totalitarian rulers, he said. It seems to me that such efforts of self-aggrandizement through self-commemoration, offend notions of good taste in democratic liberal societies. This does not seem to concern Trump, whose hunger for public displays of adoration is well known. Consider, for example, the ritualized slathering of praise during cabinet meetings. What might be a concern, though, is a reckoning that often happens when mortality catches up with the search for immortality. The Musée Napoléon returned to just the Louvre. Stalingrad is now Volgograd. Hitler's plazas died with the man. After all, just a couple of keystrokes of history separate from famous from infamous. A happier ending to the desperate search for fame can be found in the 1954 movie It Should Happen to You. A young out-of-work model named Gladys Glover, played by Judy Holliday, comes to Manhattan to try to make a name for herself. She rents a large billboard displaying only her name on Columbus Circle, across from where the Trump International Hotel and Tower now stands. Eventually, her name graces multiple city billboards, and people notice. They call her for her autograph. Television covers her. An agent soon is pitching her soap, cigarettes, and weight loss drinks. When the agent gets the military to put her name not on a class of warships but on an airplane, she awakens to the hollowness of her fame. She realizes she doesn't deserve her name on a military plane. The troops, not Gladys Glover, are the heroes. Life, she tells her agent, isn't just making a name. It's making a name stand for something, even on one block, instead of for nothing all over the world. It's a line her frustrated suitor, played by the immemorable Jack Lemmon, delivers early in the movie. Now they reconnect as she chooses the true love of one person over the adoration of the crowd. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time for our morning listeners is 9:39 a.m., and for our afternoon listeners, the time is 4:39 p.m. And now on to business news. A new approach to tax breaks for energy projects. Could this be a new model for handling tax breaks for energy projects? After months of negotiations with county and municipal officials, the developer behind one of the largest renewable energy projects in the state, the Alcat Wind Energy, will pay nothing in property taxes or alternative payments to municipalities over the next 20 years. That will boost its tax savings by 30% while giving the developers on the long-term certainty on cost that it needs to lock in its financing. But Cattaraugus County schools and municipalities are expected to wind up with more money, not less. Under the deal, Chicago-based Invenergy will pay more than twice as much as it had previously planned to Cattaraugus County, 3 towns and 3 school districts over the same period, as host communities for 38 wind turbines and an electric substation. Those communities, Farmersville, Freedom, and Yorkshire, will then be free to dictate when the money will come in and how it will be spent to benefit their residents without risk of diversion for budgetary needs. In the end, Invenergy will pay more than it would have under a payment in lieu of taxes agreement that was previously approved in February by the Cattaraugus County Industrial Development Agency. Rather than paying $22.5 million in community benefits and $20.8 million in pilot payments, it will now pay $48 million directly to the 7 entities, with more going to the towns under a pilot. As with most tax incentives projects, those are payments that the municipality would not receive if no project occurs. Even so, the LCAT project, spanning 3 western New York counties and valued at more than $620 million just in Cattaraugus County, will save $67.4 million in combined sales and property tax breaks over 2 decades, versus what it would have paid if full taxes were applied. That's a net savings of over $20 million. The arrangement represents a significant deviation from not only standard tax incentives agreements, but also those that typically have been applied to energy projects in New York. Usually, energy developers pay a flat rate per megawatt of energy produced, increasing by a percentage each year. But Cattaraugus County leaders agreed to convert the payment in lieu of taxes payments into community benefits, while also increasing the total. Cattaraugus County IDA Executive Director Corey Wichter thinks it might be the best route for such projects in future. I think it makes more sense, particularly when you get to energy projects, he said. The company is certainly paying more dollars than it was a pilot, but they get 20 years of surety on taxes, and it allows the school, county, and towns to utilize funds in the way that best serves them. The revised agreement, approved December 16, came about months after negotiations driven by county officials and the county legislature, but prompted by criticism from residents that the municipalities hadn't bargained hard enough to get the best deal from Invenergy. The deal is designed to yield more benefits directly to the local areas most impacted by the project. The county did its best by the residents and taxpayers in maximizing the benefit to those who will be affected by this horrible project, said Freedom Town resident and town board member Denise Willard, who criticized prior town leadership in both Freedom and Farmersville for agreeing to it in 2019 to, quote, expedient, very inadequate deals, and praised the county for holding out for better deals for all involved. Farmersville resident Melanie Brown echoed Willard, calling the prior agreements poorly negotiated by town boards. Fortunately, the county IDA and legislature have now bailed out the town since the town boards have no experience negotiating this type of deal, she said at one of the public hearings. The town residents are the victims of this project, and the town should use received payments to reduce the tax burden on its victims. The LCAT project will feature up to 83 wind turbines installed across Cattaraugus, Allegheny, and Wyoming counties, generating up to 340 megawatts of energy, or enough to power 134,000 homes. Those will be spread among the towns of Arcade, Freedom, Farmersville, Centerville, Rushford, with Freedom and the town of Yorkshire also hosting the interconnection facility and power transmission line that will link the project to the grid. The operations and maintenance building, meanwhile, will also be in Freedom. About half of the project will be located in Cattaraugus County, which will host 38 turbines capable of generating 171 megawatts on 10,607 acres. Another 37% of the project will be in Allegheny County and the balance in Wyoming. The company will lease the property from dozens of landowners who are to be paid $2.7 million a year for 20 years. Personal finance. It's a feeding frenzy. Overdraft charges at big banks amid regulatory shifts. 14 of the largest U.S. retail banks posted jumps in the income they generated from overdraft and bounce check fees during the first 9 months of the year, while 2 big banks reported sharp declines according to a Reuters analysis. The data reveals growing industry divergence on such fees at a time when broader economic and regulatory shifts make it more likely consumers will encounter them. It also highlights some banks still rely on overdraft fees despite industry promises to rein them in following political pressure during former Democratic President Joe Biden's administration. Reuters analyzed data on overdraft and non-sufficient funds, or NSF, charges for the 20 largest U.S. retail banks that the report collecting such fees to the Federal Financial Institutions Examination Council, a regulatory panel. The 20 banks represent roughly half of all deposits and insured U.S. banks. Overdraft and NSF fee income for the group ticked up 2% to $2.99 billion. The charges mostly relate to overdraft fees since most banks phased out NSF charges in recent years. CFPB caps rescind. The increase in fee incomes coincides with congressional Republicans' move in May to scrap a Biden-era Consumer Financial Protection Bureau regulation that would have curtailed overdraft fees, which the CFPB estimated would have saved depositors $5 billion a year. The rule, which was part of a Biden administration crackdown on, quote, junk fees, would have come into force in October and effectively capped fees at $5, down from the typical $35. Amid Democratic political pressure, some large banks modified their policies to help customers avoid the charges or drop them altogether, even before the CFPB tried to cap them. With Republicans taking control of Congress this year, the industry saw an opportunity to kill that rule, arguing such price controls could deny credit to depositors in need. Aaron Klein, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution who studies overdraft policies, said economic factors likely influence fluctuations in such revenue, with consumers more prone to becoming overdrawn when times are tough. But the picture would have been different had the CFPB's rules survived and banks geared up to comply with it, he said. When the watchdog was put to sleep, some institutions went back on the prowl, and others have stayed kind of doing what they have been doing, Klein said. CFPB 2017 research found nearly 80% of overdraft fees came from just 9% of accounts, which had only a few $100s at the time. Consumer Bankers Association CEO Lindsey Johnson said many consumers rely on overdrafts to make ends meet, and that the industry worked to lower the fees. What matters most is ensuring consumers continue to have access to these protections, as studies show overdraft services are deeply valued, she said. Below historic norms. USAA Federal Savings Bank, which serves military personnel, reported the biggest year-on jump of 20%. At $78 million, the fees accounted for more than a fifth of its net income over the 9-month period. In a statement, USAA said overdrafts help customers meet short-term needs, and that its fees are expected lower than at most banks, but that it expected overdraft revenues to decline next year, as the bank recently raised the negative balance threshold for incurring a charge to $100 from $50. Citizens Bank posted the second biggest jump at 17%, and TD Bank posting a 14% increase. Such fee revenue was equal to 13% of TD's net income, the data shows. JP Morgan and Bank of America's fees increased 8% and 2% respectively. A Bank of America spokesperson said its overdraft revenues had fallen 97% since 2009, and that the bank offered customers ways to avoid incurring such charges. The increases were offset by a 10% fall at Wells Fargo, while Truist's fee income fell 22%. Citigroup and Ally Financial scrapped overdraft charges in 2022 and 2021 respectively. Both said they still offer overdraft services. Despite the uptick, fees are well below historic norms. The whole industry in 2023 reported $6 billion in such fees, compared to $13 billion in 2019, according to CFPB data. The numbers right now are night and day, different from what they used to be, said Christopher McGrady, head of U.S. Bank Research at KBW. That's consumer protection at work. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That number again is 716-821-5555. Angelo C. Abruzino, Charles P. Annunziato, Vincent R. Antonelli, William G. Bates, Bonnie K. Bergman Negagnon, Randall P. Boujard, Richard T. Chalgren Sr., Camille A. Close Ni Urbanzik, Donald Henry Cody, Donnan Siegfried Kuvert Ni Seymour, Andrew Drew Mark Swojak. Patricia C. Dobler. Brian Patrick Ferguson. Sharon W. Gake Nee Cudmore. Robert F. Gorin. Francis J. Frank Gerard. James Robert Gerlin Sr. Margaret J. Gray Nee Greg. Dolores K. Hacker Nee King. Carol Hansel Nee Schreiner. Roger D. Harrington. George James Heinz. James Kiswiski. Catherine Knights. Joan D. Kossoff Nee Zakalik. Maureen B. Labby Nee Daniels. Maeve Margaret Lickfield. Thomas J. Lippa. Francis S. Luca. Betty Louise McCollum Nee Health. Patricia A. McDonald Nee Bewick. Mary J. McIver Nee Larkin. Paul E. Michlinski. June E. Opie. Sarah J. Palladino Nee Selvaggi. Renee F. Perez Bode DDS. John P. Persico. Gail M. Philbin Nee Beaver. Ray E. Phillips. Barbara A. Pietrocarlo Nee Kerbeline. Carol M. Pidorf Nee Prenette. Richard A. Pompeo. Timothy Rawls. Carol D. Reistardus Nee Diffenbach. Marianne Mem Righty Donahue. Caroline L. Ripolino Nee Brunner. Bessie A. Robinson Nee Scott. Maureen Robinson Whalen. Dennis W. Shrimp. Ronald W. Schropf. Frank A. Cerviani. Ben K. Sion. Mary Ann Sharrow. Dorothy Singer Otto. Peter Solander. Linda Jean Somerville Heckmiller. Edward R. Starr, Ph.D. Marie Rose Strichetz Tyrone. Diane L. Suizik Nee Malik. Mary Lou Taylor. Anthony Tyrone. Richard J. Tokars. Gary B. Treichler. Stella Turnziski. Reverend James T. Vacco, OFM. Virginia M. Vaillancourt, Nee Soberest. Diane D.D. Vogt. David C. Volker. Phyllis A. Wainwright, Nee Dudek. Richard Wilkers. Donald Williams. Charles H. Wolfer. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. Again, that number being 716-821-5555. And now on to the horoscopes. It's Royal Stars from Georgia Nichols. Happy birthday for Sunday, December 28th, 2025. You're thoughtful, dependable, confident, and capable. You like to help others. This is a year to work and build structure both internally and externally in your life. The stars will show what kind of day you'll have. 5 being dynamic, 4 being positive, 3 is average, 2 is so-so, and 1 is difficult. For Aries, you're having a 4-star day. You yearn to travel and do anything that you can to seek adventure and broaden your horizons, which is why discussions will interest you today. Tonight, you win. For Taurus, you'll have a 3-star day. Take things slowly and gently today. Enjoy your privacy. Make travel plans or sign up for courses to expand your knowledge. Tonight, solitude. Gemini, a 4-star day. This is a feel-good day. Enjoy the company of friends as well as groups and organizations. Somewhere in your day, you might get an exciting idea about how to boost your income. Tonight, friendships. For Cancer, it's a 3-star day. Because you feel friendly to others today, you make an excellent impression on everyone. Discussions with authority figures, parents, and bosses will be chatty and informative. Tonight, you're admired. For Leo, a 4-star day. Do something different to satisfy your urge for adventure and stimulation. Nose around your neighborhood. Tonight, explore. A 3-star day for Virgo. Family discussions will benefit you today. Someone might help you do home repairs or give you excellent ideas about dealing with your home and family. Tonight, check your finances. For Libra, a 4-star day. Relations with others, including members of the public, are friendly today. Tonight, you listen. Scorpio, a 3-star day. You enjoy a busy pace of short trips, discussions with others, and a chance to learn new things. You're enthusiastic. Tonight, work. Sagittarius, this is a lovely day to socialize with others. Travel if you can. Talk to everyone you meet. Make plans to explore romantic opportunities. Tonight you play, and you're having a 4-star day. Capricorn, 3 stars. You're confident and strong right now, which is reassuring. Nevertheless, today you're happy to cocoon at home by yourself in a relaxing way. Tonight, relax. Aquarius, a 4-star day. A friendly discussion with someone, perhaps younger, will interest you today. You might learn something new, especially about how to boost your health. Tonight, discussions. And for Pisces, 3 stars, respect your money-making ideas today. They might hold water. Meanwhile, this is a marvelous day to socialize. Romance is favored. Enjoy playful activities with kids. Tonight, check your possessions. And for this day in history, December 28th, in 1895, the Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis, held their first public showing of their films in Paris. In 1908, a major earthquake, followed by a tsunami, devastated the Italian cities of Messina and Reggio Calabria, killing at least 70,000 people. In 1912, San Francisco's Municipal Railway began operations with Mayor James Rolfe Jr. at the controls of streetcar number 1, as 50,000 spectators looked on. In 1945, Congress officially recognized the Pledge of Allegiance. In 1972, Kim Il-sung, the premier of North Korea, was named the country's president. In 1973, President Richard Nixon signed the Endangered Species Act, a law designed to protect plants and animals from extinction. In 1981, Elizabeth Jordan Carr was the first American test tube baby to be born in Norfolk, Virginia. In 1991, 9 people died in a crush of people trying to get into a celebrity charity basketball game at City College in New York that was headlined by hip-hop stars. In 2014, the U.S. war in Afghanistan came to a formal end after 13 years, with a quiet flag-lowering ceremony in Kabul, marking the transition of fighting from U.S.-led combat troops to the country's own security forces. More than 2,200 Americans had died in Afghanistan since that war began. And now on to a bit of a reading from the Political Notebook. District of Columbia. Show's cancellation spurs harsh criticism. The president of the Kennedy Center on Friday fiercely criticized a musician's sudden decision to cancel a Christmas Eve performance at the venue days after the White House announced that President Trump's name would be added to the facility. Your decision to withdraw at the last moment, explicitly in response to the Center's recent renaming, which honors President Trump's extraordinary efforts to save this national treasure, is classic tolerance and very costly to a nonprofit arts institution, the venue's president, Richard Grinnell, wrote in a letter to musician Chuck Redd that was shared with the Associated Press. In the letter, Grinnell said he would seek $1 million in damages for this, quote, political stunt. Redd didn't respond to requests for comment immediately. A drummer and vibraphone player, Redd has presided over holiday jazz jams at the Kennedy Center since 2006. When I saw the name change on the Kennedy Center website and then hours later on the building, I chose to cancel our concert, Redd said. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, and Congress passed the law the following year naming the center as a living memorial to him. Grinnell, who is a Trump ally, whom the president chose to head the Kennedy Center after he was forced out of the previous leadership, according to the White House, Trump's hand-picked board approved the renaming, which scholars have said violates the law. The law explicitly prohibits the Board of Trustees from making the center into a memorial to anyone else and from putting another person's name on the building's exterior. You're listening to a reading of today's articles and features from the Buffalo News for Sunday, December 28th on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been Edwin J. Vieira, and for the second hour, your reader will be Ron Bickelman. Thank you for listening.
Hello, this is Marian Heatherly, Community Engagement Coordinator for your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and I'd like to talk to you as another year comes to a close. We've been reflecting on what we've accomplished in 2025 and what needs to be done in the new year, and you, our listeners, are at the heart of everything. The most important message we want to share this holiday season is thank you to all of our listeners who have supported radio reading in 2025 by listening, by making a donation, by attending an event, by spreading the word about us, by connecting a new listener with us. You're incredibly important to us, as we review our accomplishments of the past year and plan for the future, so we can keep our programming free for everyone who needs it and reach more people who would benefit. On behalf of the entire team at Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, may the joys of the holiday season be with you all.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your reader is Ron Bickelman. Buffalo Mayor-elect Sean Ryan City Hall changes move forward. Buffalo Common Council has approved new titles for incoming administration Mayor-elect Sean Ryan. Ryan announced many of his proposed moves, including a new system with 4 deputy mayors in the weeks since he won the general election in November, becoming Buffalo's first newly elected mayor in 2 decades. He plans to create several new positions while eliminating others and increasing the salaries for several leadership positions. Common Council approved these changes at their final regular meeting of the year Tuesday, passing measures to create new titles with some conditions that make them contingent on other steps, such as passage of local laws in some instances. Fillmore District Council member Mitchell Nowakowski, who endorsed Ryan in the election, thanked his colleagues for coming together and working on amendments to the measures with Ryan administration. I'm happy to see that the series of amendments will help this administration set out on day one and get going on the plan that they put forward to the city of Buffalo, and they can do it the way they see fit, he said. Benjamin Swankamp, one of the 4 deputy mayors working for the incoming administration, said that the approval of new positions will help the administration hit the ground running. Those reorganization packages put in place the leadership team the mayor envisions and how the staff his office, as well as making some notable changes like the movement of parks to be an independent department, he said. The council is expected to vote on a larger reorganization package that will include appointments in a special meeting on January 2nd. Swankamp praised the council members for putting in extra work to make sure the package was ready for a vote this week. We've been working with council leadership as well as the whole council to make sure that these concerns were addressed when it comes to this package, he said. City Council Majority Leader Leah Halton Pope said she had questions and concerns about the amendment package and that she worked through with the incoming administration and was glad that they were resolved. Some of the new titles and other changes require passages of a local law, meaning the council will have to hold a public hearing before they vote, but she understands the administration's urgency in getting Ryan's team in place quickly, she added. It's a big thing, so you want to bring in all your people, but when it's at the end of the year, setting a public hearing is a little bit of a challenge, Halton Pope said. Suspect in killing of grandmother, subject of appeal. Case for Buffalo woman accused of killing her grandmother 4 years ago is headed for the state's highest court. Defense attorneys for Jamin Lee Harris asked the Court of Appeals to throw out a murder charge reinstated earlier this year by an appellate court. Harris pleaded guilty in November 2022 to 2 counts of weapons possession and wasn't charged with her grandmother's murder until May of 2023. Erie County Judge Kenneth Case dismissed the murder case in October of 2023, ruling that prosecutors were barred from indicting Harris for murder. Case ruled that prosecutors already had enough evidence to charge Harris with the slaying when they filed the gun charges, but they didn't. Defense attorney Nicholas Texedo, who represented Harris along with defense attorney Brian Dowie, filed a brief with the Court of Appeals in October. The district attorney's response is due January 7th. An argument date before the court has not been scheduled. Harris, 44, is accused of killing Catherine Jones, 90, on the morning of November 21st, 2021. Jones was found dead in her Highgate Avenue living room. She died of a gunshot wound to the chest. At the time Harris admitted to the gun charges, prosecutors had the following evidence. Texedo said in court papers, admissions from Harris that she was playing with the gun and that it may have shot her grandmother. Admissions from Harris that the guns were hers. Admissions from Harris that nobody else was inside the house who could have hurt her grandmother. Police observation of Harris acting strangely at the scene. Ballistic evidence that tied one of the guns of the bullet to the bullet that killed Jones. If that wasn't enough for prosecutors to lodge a murder charge, that would make murder persecutions all but impossible, Texaco wrote. But by a 3-to-1 vote, the Appellate Division, 4th Department, in June ruled that the case improperly dismissed the secondary murder indictment. The appellate judges concluded that the gun possession and killing should be viewed as a separate and distinct criminal acts that were not part of the same criminal transaction. As Harris' appeal proceeds, the district attorney's office is moving forward with its prosecution of Harris in the county court. Prosecutors said in court this week that they have received notice from Harris defense attorneys and they intend to pursue a psychiatric defense. Harris was sentenced to probation in January of 2023 after pleading guilty to 2 counts of gun possession. Suppression hearings in the murder prosecution have been scheduled for March 18th. Attempts to rescue guinea pigs spirals into costly venture. Owning just one guinea pig is a bad idea. 2 guinea pigs with enough room to move around, places to hide, and a human owner who cares about these social animals' hygiene and happiness can feel manageable. 147 guinea pigs, all of whom depend on you, is something else entirely. It's alarming, it's untenable. That's how many guinea pigs are currently waiting for adoption through Buffalo Guinea Pig Mafia Rescue, a volunteer-run operation headquartered in Suburban Garage in Amherst. Another 47 are on the waiting list. Intake is closed. The phones are inbox. I'm told keep filing away. Filing anyway. Sometimes I'll get a text and I'll think, oh no, and I just won't read it, said Jessica Meacham, the rescue founder. That's how it is right now. This is a story about what happens when a need in society, in this case a niche in the world of animal welfare, begins to overwhelm any one person's ability to meet it. And the implications are far broader than what happens at one small animal rescue. By day, Meacham works as a social worker in the Buffalo Public Schools. She didn't set out to start a nonprofit in her off hours. There was no business plan, no intention of turning her 2-car attached garage into a semi-permanent facility dedicated to the welfare of domestic rodents. It began on an offhand comment at an event in summer of 2024. A woman Meacham met mentioned that she was trying to rehome a couple of guinea pigs. I told her, I run a guinea pig rescue, Meacham said. She admits it was the odd thing to say because at the time she didn't. I told my husband it was just going to be a couple of guinea pigs for a couple of months, she said, smiling the way people do when they realize their good intentions have spiraled into something unexpected. Within a year, Meacham and a growing network of volunteer fostered families placed more than 200 guinea pigs into new homes. The ones who aren't adopted live temporarily in houses across the region. Food, bedding, veterinary care, and transport all cost money. Why are there so many homeless guinea pigs? Because Meacham said guinea pigs aren't the low-maintenance starter pets that many people believe them to be. They require daily care, constant access to hay, vitamin C supplementation, space to move, and social interaction. They need veterinary care. They can live 7 or 8 years. They do best in large cages with open tops, Meacham said, and usually need more space than first-time owners realize. When people discover that after the fact, or when their circumstances change, the animals are surrendered. They are also prolific. Both females and males can reproduce as early as 4 weeks old. Females can deliver litters 1 or 2 to 4 pups up to 5 times a year. Surrendered animals have to go somewhere. I can't help but notice how her at-capacity rescue organization mirrors Meacham's paid work. As a social worker, she spends her days dealing with the fallout of unmet human needs, which can include family instability, poverty, stress, and neglect. Part of her job is trying to bend the entire system that don't bend easily while trying to help individuals caught up in circumstances bigger than themselves. In the evenings, she does something similar for animals who slip through much smaller but very real gap. Neither jobs comes with a clear off switch. 147 animals kept alive by volunteers who are doing so by stretching their own commitments, finances, and personal comfort is a warning light to us all. Forget that we're talking about guinea pigs for the moment. It also something meant to be temporary can turn into infrastructure. We can joke about guinea pigs on my way to meet Meacham. On my way to meet Meacham and see the operation, my wife told me, I swear to God, if you come home with something that squeaks, and yes, they do squeak, they sit quietly on a couch. They get names like Sir Squeaks-a-Lot and Piggy Smalls. In Meacham's crowded but organized garage, their cartoon-cute faces are briefly disarming. But what stayed with me was how familiar the situation felt. Here is a problem no one planned for, and a need no one group is fully responsible for. And one busy, decent person who said yes once and then kept saying yes because the alternative feels worse. Buffalo Guinea Pig Mafia Rescue is asking for help. Foster care families, responsible adopters, and donations to cover costs in veterinary care and care costs. You can find them on Facebook. I don't have any answers. I only know we've gotten pretty comfortable asking good people to turn temporary kindness into permanent responsibility. People Inc. opens housing in Williamsville. Neighbors fought project at old Blocker Homes site. Janice Nitcher, personal care aide at Blocker Homes in Williamsville, said it's heartbreaking to pass by the property now and see the apartments that replace the senior residence where she once worked for 20 years. Douglas Coppola, who joined a lawsuit to try to stop the construction of mixed-income housing at Blocker site, said he still worries about noise and traffic the complex could bring. But Jahoon Cook, a new Blocker home tenant, raves about his spacious apartment and its location in the heart of Williamsville. The housing project, which cost $42 million, spurred a heated debate within the village. Blocker Homes neighbors cited the quality of life concerns. Blocker residents, most in their 80s and 90s, said they loved the facility and didn't want to move. And employees like Nichter didn't want to lose their jobs because, she said, nothing else compared with the family-like atmosphere there. But Blocker owner Beechwood Continuing Care said it could no longer afford to keep the senior residence on Evans Street open. Divided Williamsville Planning Board approved the project and a court challenge failed. Now, more than 6 years after the apartment plan was revealed, tenants have started moving into the new 93-unit complex. We've added new, beautiful housing in this area that's safe for people, that's affordable, and that meets the demonstrated need. Ann McCaffrey, People Inc. President and CEO, said in an interview. Closing announced, Beechwood Continuing Care had operated Blocker Homes since 1977. The current building had opened in 1970, but seniors had lived on the pastoral Evans Street property since 1906. There were 50 seniors at Blocker Homes in August 2019 when Beechwood, citing financial constraints, announced its intention to close the facility and sell to People Incorporated. The agency planned to convert Blocker to a mixed-income apartments with some units set aside for people with developmental or physical disabilities. Beechwood, which did not respond to messages seeking comment, vowed any Blocker resident who wanted could move to the organization's main campus in Amherst. Some Blocker seniors made signs and planned a public protest that drew widespread media attention. Craig Spears' mother, Mildred, an Army nurse during World War II, who lived at Blocker for 2 years by the summer of 2020. They were well into their 90s and they were very outspoken. They got out on the picket line and it was absolutely amazing. I mean, that's how much they thought of their little community at Blocker Homes. And there wasn't any real respect for that, said Craig Spears, who contended there are more suitable sites for People Inc. project that were never considered. Blocker Homes had 60 employees, including 18 who were members of the 1199 SEIU labor union at the time of the announcement. We were scared, we had questions, nobody was telling us things. I thought it was terrible, so did a lot of other people, Nitcher said. It made the whole situation a lot harder. Project narrowly approved. Opposition wasn't limited to inside Blocker homes. Neighbors on Evans and nearby Village Point Lane, where some of Amherst's most expensive homes were located, feared the loss of green space and greater traffic and noise. The Human Service Agency did tweak its plans. The final version called for 93 one- and two-bedroom apartments in the renovated Blocker Homes building and in 3 buildings constructed along Evans, along with extra parking, landscaping, and playground on a 5-acre property. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for December 28th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Time is 15 minutes after the hour. The Village Planning Board in the fall of 2020 narrowly approved the project's site plan by a 4-3 vote and granted a favorable architectural review by a 6-1 vote. A group of neighbors filed suit, arguing the project's environmental effects demanded more thorough review to no avail. By 2021, all Blocker residents had moved out, some to the main Beechwood campus, but many other to senior facilities. Mildred Spears was 100 and living at Brothers of Mercy in Clarence when she died in 2022. She didn't like the facility she moved to, Craigspire said. It was not the same. It was a family-like atmosphere at Blocker. You were not going to be able to replace that. It's not clear where all the employees went following the Blocker closing. Nitcher had cared for a paralyzed son in a part-time basis while working at Blocker. Now is paid full-time. Now 63, she said she hoped to retire from Blocker, and she still gets together for a weekly lunch with a group of ex-Blocker employees. Beechwood sold the Blocker property to people for just over $1.2 million in April 2023. New tenants impressed. Work at Blocker site began late that year and wrapped up recently. Financing for the project largely came from the state and federal tax credits. McCaffrey said 255 people applied to live in the 93-unit Blotcher apartments. The agency set a lottery to select the new tenants. One went further review and confirmation of eligibility, with 100 more applications coming in since the lottery was held. McCaffrey gave the Buffalo News a look inside the new unit, the 1-bedroom apartment and kitchen with GE appliances, granite countertops, living space, large windows, and a balcony with steps led down to the sidewalk on Evans. We have 93 people and family members moving in, and we are thrilled. Some of them are moving from substandard housing and walking into this facility and saying how beautiful and lucky they are to be here, McCaffrey said. Neighbors still wary. The agency expects about 30 units to be filled this month and full occupancy about March. This is what when neighbors say they'll learn the true effect of the project with a traffic and major potential issue. The new tenant will drive far more than the Blocker seniors did, neighbors said, and Evans is already a busy road. Coppola, the neighbor who took part in the Blotcher legal challenge, said he still is concerned about the complex's scale, but is impressed with the quality of materials used in the building. People Inc.'s vetting process for residents and agency's long-term commitment to fix any problems. People Inc. invited neighbors to an open house in the fall, and McCaffrey said she still believes it went well. Paul Como, a neighbor who joined the lawsuit, said the agency promptly addressed a concern raised about light poles on the campus. Some of the lighting was in fact not shielded appropriately and was just blasted away like a used car lot, Como said. And in response, they put in shields on the lights, so that was very nice of them to do that. They did it quickly. Williamsville Mayor Christine Hunt attended the open house. She lives near the Blocker home campus and prior to joining the village government was party to the neighbors' lawsuit. She said she appreciates the work that went into the buildings inside and out and praised People Inc.'s outreach, but remains convinced the development needs more extensive review. I still to this day believe it's too big for its space, she said. That said, as mayor, there was one piece of Blocker home history she wanted to preserve at Hunt's request. People Inc. gave the original Blocker Homes marker to the village. The stone, dated 1904, now sits in Williamsville's 1812 garden on Evans, just north of Main Street. So we're trying to be good neighbors, we're trying to be good neighbors, and we're welcoming them to the village, Hunt said. Screenagers learn how to navigate social media, AI. San Francisco, most teenagers know that baseless conspiracy theories, partisan propaganda, and artificially generated deepfakes lurk on social media. Valerie Ziegler students know how to spot them. At Abraham Lincoln High School in San Francisco, she trains her government, economy, and history students to consult a variety of sources, recognize rage-baiting content, and consider influence motivations. They brainstorm ways to distinguish deepfakes from real footage. Ziegler 50 is part of a vanguard of California educators racing to prepare students in a rapidly changing online world. Content moderation policies have withered at social media platforms, making it easier to lie and harder to trust. Artificial intelligence is evolving so quickly and generating such persuasive content that even professionals who specialize in detecting its presence are being stumped. California is ahead of many other states in pushing schools to teach digital literacy, but even here, education officials are not expected to set specific standards until later in 2026. So Ziegler and a growing group of her peers are forging ahead, cobbling together lesson plans from nonprofit groups and updating older coursework to address new technologies such as artificial intelligence that powers video apps like Sora. Their methods are hands-on, including classroom exercises that fact-check posts about libraries on TikTok and explore how badges that appear to signal verification on social media can often be bought rather than earned. Teachers and librarians around the country have long tried to prepare students for the pitfalls of being online, but the past few years have underscored for educators just how much their work increasingly involves playing catch-up with a moving target. Ziegler's efforts showcase the difficulties of keeping pace with new social media platforms, apps, and advances in AI. We're sending these kids in the world. We're supposed to have provided them skills, said Ziegler, a former California Teacher of the Year. Tricky part is that we adults are learning this skill at the same time the kids are. Social media literacy is a tough subject for schools to try to teach, especially now. Federal funding for education is precarious, and the Trump administration has politicized and penalized the study of disinformation and misinformation. AI is becoming pervasive in the educational system, available to younger and younger children, even as its dangers to students and educators become increasingly clear. The New Literacy Project, a media education nonprofit, surveyed 1,110 teenagers in May last year and found that 4 in 10 said they had any media literacy instruction in class that year. 8 of the 10 said they had come across a conspiracy theory on social media, including false claims that the 2020 election was rigged, and many said they were inclined to believe at least one of the narratives. Ziegler teaches the self-described screenagers as her classes that their social media feeds are populated using highly responsive algorithms, and the large followings do not make accounts trustworthy. In one case, the students learn to distinguish between a reputable historians group on Instagram and a historical satire account with a similar name. Now, they default to double-checking the information that interests them online. That's a starting point, said Xavier Malizia, 17. Ziegler first tried to teach AI literacy last year to a testing group on a new module at the Digital Inquiry Group, a nonprofit literacy organization. She relies heavily on collaborations, often consulting with her school's librarian or using free resources from CRAFT and A1 Literacy Project from Stanford University. Riley Hong, 17, said she had recently nearly been not quite duped by artificially generated clips that portrayed Jake Paul, a popular boxer and influencer, as a gay man applying cosmetics. Alicia Turek-Levy, 18, said it was jarring to watch a realistic AI video of someone falling off Mount Everest, but added that the visuals in the video were often too smooth, a useful tell that helps many identify them as fake. Zahn Sharpie, 17, noted the AI-generated videos often seem to originate from accounts that were all posts feature the same person wearing the same clothes and speaking the same information in cadence. It's kind of scary Because we all have a lot more to see, Zion said. I feel like it's just the beginning. Policymakers are paying more attention to the issue. Dr. Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General under the former President Joe Biden, urged schools in 2023 to set up digital literacy instruction at least 25 states have approved related legislations, according to an upcoming report from the Media Literacy Now, a nonprofit group. Most of the new rules, however, are voluntary, toothless, or slow to take effect, or do not acknowledge the growing presence of artificial intelligence. I absolutely wish we could make things happen faster, said California Assembly member Mark Berman. It's all about really strengthening those foundational skills so that no matter what tech pops up between now and then, young people have the ability to handle it, Berman said. Now let's look at Asking Eric. New friend group starts bringing up old insecurities. Dear Eric, after 38 years of military and Department of Defense service, I retired and moved my current home 8 years ago in a town I'd never lived before. I became friends with a woman 2 years ago, and she introduced me to her larger circle of friends, about 19 women. Since then, I've become close with her and her best friend, and the three of us often do things together. When the larger group gets together, they let everyone know about the event through a text chain, which they have declined to include me in. I do get invited to quarterly birthday parties. There's a separate text chain for that, but generally I'm unaware of most of their activities. My two friends often ask me to go with them when they notice I wasn't invited. I feel like the larger group of women look at me as a friend of the other two women. They're always friendly when I see them, and when I invite the larger group to an event hosted by my church or civic organization, many of them will come. But when my two friends ask me to tag along, I feel I'm party crashing, going to something I wasn't invited to. They act like it's no big deal, and that the more they include me, the more likely it is that the larger group will eventually include me. This feels so awkward to me. Am I overreacting? Feels like a middle school girl. Dear feeling, you're not. Try to navigate the borders of an established group of friends can be really frustrating and confusing at any age. Part of the issue is, although the invitations from your two friends are seemingly genuine and made without reservation, the group as a whole has made its own personality. And what we want, at least in my experience, for that whole group to come to you with open arms, so that the internal middle schooler with all her fears assuaged. One way to combat this is to cultivate friendships with other members of the group. Are there others with whom you've made connections, even small ones, while at large group events? If so, consider reaching out to one or two for tea or lunch or something. You don't have to convert about your intentions. People like to hear, I'd love to get together to know you better, or can we be better friends? Within a large group of friends, there are many sub-relationships. Some people are going to connect more with others. Some members of the group might feel the same awkwardness you do. If you were already part of the larger group, you'd already have some of the sub-relationships going. There's no time limit. You can start cultivating them now. Dear Eric, I love to send holiday cards. On my list, so many brides opted to not take their husband's last name. It was no problem to address Mr. John Smith and Mrs. Jane Doe. Now kids have been coming along. Am I to use Smith family, even if wife or mom does not use the surname? Card question. Dear Card, how about Mr. John Smith and Mrs. Jane Doe and family? While some recipients may not mind being lumped together under one name, if you don't mind using the ink, it could be better to err on the side of caution. Another option, if the kids have hyphenated last names, you can always address the names on the cards as Smith Doe family. Lastly, the possibility must simply try the Smith and Doe family. Cover all your bases. Dear Eric, when I saw the summary from a letter writer whose wife spends all of her time online instead of helping with all the yard work and do housework, doing it all myself, I was afraid to of my husband. My husband had written it. I don't spend all my time online, but when I have a stressful job and bouts of anxiety and depression often lead me to weekends buried in books, TV, and puzzle games on devices. I saw part of myself in his wife. The part of me wants to do the yard work and keep the house nice, but I'm overwhelmed by it. I can spend an hour organizing a cabinet or a closet only to find that other members of the household just mess it up. She may be suffering from depression. It can suggest that she talked to her doctor. It may be helpful. Been there, done that. Been there. This is a very helpful follow-up. The husband would be wise to talk to his wife about what else is going on. While unequal division of labor can put a strain on a marriage, the problem may need to be a more comprehensive solution than a chore chart. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for December 28th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Time is 30 minutes after the hour. Now let's take a look at sports. We're going to go and look at the World Junior Championships in hockey. Perek scores twice. Canada tops Chechnya, U.S. victorious. Zane Perek scored twice. Canada had 4 goals in the third period, and the Canadians defeated Chechnya 7-5 Friday night at the World Junior Championship. Canada, the 20-time champion, is looking to return to the podium after being eliminated by Chechnya in the quarterfinals in each of the past 2 tournaments. Chechnya took the bronze both times. There were 3 goals in the first 6.5 minutes of an explosive third period, capped by Tage Iginla's goal that gave Canada a 5-4 lead. Ethan McKenzie's goal a few minutes later made it 6-4 for the Canadians. Thomas Gelvis scored for Chechnya with 4.5 minutes left in the game, and Porter Martone found the empty net for Canada to wrap up the scoring. Chechnya outshot Canada 33-27. Carter George stopped 28 shots for Canada. Michael Orsluak had 20 saves for Chechnya. Martin Brady's goal nearly 14 minutes into the third period gave Canada a 1-0 lead. Brady took a centering pass from Gavin McKenna near the front of the crease and beat Orsulak to the left side. Thomas Politan tied it for Chechnya at 17:01, but it took Canada just 37 seconds to go back ahead, 2-1 on a goal by Michael Haig. Zeller leads the U.S. Will Zeller scored twice and added an assist for the United States, beat Germany 6-3 in both teams' opening games. Zeller scored twice in the second period, picking up an assist on Anthony Spellici on both goals. Martin Plant opened the scoring for the back-to-back defending champions, finishing a rebound from Teddy Stiga shot 5:34 into the first. Zellers and Brandon McMorrow assisted on Chase Reed on his second goal midway through the first period before Will Horkoff netted a third with 4:05 remaining in the period. Germany cut a 3-goal deficit to 2 when Timo Kos scored with 2:21 left in the first period. They cut the 2-goal deficit to 1 on 2 occasions in the second period. Simon Seidel and Lenny Booz both scored in the second period, with Dustin Wilkoft assisted on both efforts. Zeller's goal created a 2-goal cushion for the U.S. each time. Cole Iserman's goal at 1:53 left in the second to reestablish a 3-goal lead. Finland defeats Denmark. Jasper Kuta led Finland with 3 assists, including 2 on goals from Rope Vesterinen in a 6-2 win over Denmark in each of the team's opening games. Kuta was one of 5 players to finish with at least 2 points for Finland, with 12 with at least 1 point, along with Vesterinen and Aaron Kiva Harju, Lasse Bolius, and Leo Tuva. Kuta and Tuva both assisted on Vesterinen's inside the first 2 minutes of opening the scoring, and Amne Kalto scored a second period goal 30 seconds later. After William Bundgaard scored for Denmark 6:08 into the first period. Oliver Suvanto responded with a power play goal for Finland 4 minutes later. Finland had last year's silver medal, had 20 shots on goal to Denmark's 2 in the opening period. Atos Koivu, Jonas Serlainen, and Vesterinen all scored in the second period to put Finland up 6-1 with 8:39 remaining in the period. ECHL postpones games. The ECHL postponed 13 games after players went on strike, causing a major work stoppage in North American Development Minor Hockey League, 2 tiers below the NHL. The Professional Hockey Players Association announced it was commenced job action and cited traveled back-to-back games and a holiday break, guaranteeing contracts, health benefits during the off-season, and player compensations as unresolved issues in talks on a new collective bargaining agreement. Our members are simply seeking reasonable improvements that allow them to work safely and earn a sustainable living while continuing to perform at a high level, Executive Director Brian Ramsey said. During the union's repeated efforts to meet engaged in bargaining, the league has continued to communicate directly with players in a manner that bypasses the union's role as an exclusive bargaining representative. Members of the PHPA voted last week to authorize its negotiating committee to call for a strike. The league and union have been engaged in collective bargaining since January. Let's take a look at soccer now. Moroccans cry foul amid empty seats. Empty seats in sold-out stadiums, out-of-reach prices on the black market. Moroccan soccer fans in particular are being frustrated at the African Cup of Nations because many can't get tickets for their own team's games. Morocco and neighboring Algeria were the only teams to have their group stage tickets sell out. But again, on Friday, there were empty seats for the host nation's match against Mali in the near 70,000 capacity stadium, Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium in Rabat. I tried to log in to the ticketing site early, but unfortunately many people were logged in at the same time and I couldn't get a place. It was completely full, said Morocco supporter Amin Mazraoui, who was waiting outside the stadium before kickoff. Another fan named Haicham had the same experience, trying the official ticket portal, but finding every game sold out for almost as soon as he started looking. He was going to watch the match at home. The official attendance for Friday's game was given at 63,844, more than had attended the opening game and the ceremony in the same stadium. Touts are being blamed for snapping up tickets to the matches they feel are likely to be most popular, sensing an opportunity to sell them for as much as 10 times what they paid. Reports suggested €50, 59 tickets were being offered for 500 or €590. There are people connecting with 10 computers, maybe 15 computers connecting with the same and buying a lot of places, so it's because of them we didn't manage to get any seat, Mazraoui told the AP. But all supporters and journalists have to provide identification through a local app called Yalla to get access to stadiums, and it seems the additional measures are making it more difficult for touts to transfer ticket ownership. One fan who gave his name only as Khalid was lucky and said he paid 100 Moroccan dirhams, $11 for his ticket to the game, compared to nearby Europe starting prices are far cheaper, while no comparison to the asking prices for the 2026 World Cup games. On Wednesday, only 16,115 attended Algeria's game against Sudan in the 22,000 capacity Mo Alai Hassin Stadium in Rabat, which had been sold out long before. They won't open the gates for Morocco, Mazraoui said. The attendance at Congo's match against Benin in the 18,000 capacity Stade El Barid in Rabat was corrected from 6,000 to 13,000. Senegal-Congo draw. Senegal has a new star. The 17-year-old French-born Ibrahim Mbaye rejuvenated his team and provided the impetus for Sadio Mane to score in a 1-1 draw with Congo in the African Cup Nations on Saturday. Senegal dominated possession and chances with Nicholas Jackson in Maine, again missing good opportunities as they did in the opening win against Botswana. Cedric Bakamu pounced on the rebound to open the scoring for Congo in the 61st after Edouard Mendy then had saved Thal Bangada's initial shot. Bengal coach Papi Thaw reacted by sending Mabe, and the 17-year-old made an immediate impact, though not before Bangada could have made it 2-0 on a break. Mabai ran at the Congolese defenders and had an effort saved by goalkeeper Lionel Macy, with Maney tucking away the rebound to level in the 69th. Earlier, Johan Roche's first half strike was enough for Benin to beat Botswana 1-0 for its first win. After 2 games, Senegal leads Group D with 4 points ahead of Congo on a goal difference, with Benin third on 3, followed by Botswana with none. The top 2 progresses automatically to the last 16, along with the best third-place finishers. Looking at the Olympics, Austrian Sheeb collects victory, skiing in the front of her home crowd, winning the race and going to the top of her discipline standings. Julia Sheeb could have hardly wished for a better scenario to wrap up her calendar year 2025, just weeks before the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics. The Austrian won a World Cup giant slalom on home snow in her capital Vienna on Saturday, beating Switzerland's Camille Rasp by 1.14 tenths of a second, and Olympic champion Sarah Hector of Sweden by 4 tenths of a second. Michaela Schifrin, the women's record holder with 22 Grand Slalom victories, finished 6th. It's crazy. I never thought it would be the win. It was so tough. It was so bumpy. And I was so relieved when I came to the finish, said Sheeb, who was 200ths behind Hector after the opening run. In the final run, Sheeb trailed then leader Rast until the final split and had a perfect finish section. It's amazing. I heard the crowd before I skied into the last section. I heard the crowd and I thought I had to let the skis go, Sheeb said. Alice Robinson, Sheeb's maid rival in the Grand Slalom, skied out in the first run, and the New Zealander racer failed to score points, enabling the Austrian to overtake her and enter the Olympic year with an 88-point lead in discipline standings, having won 2 of 3 Grand Slalom races this season. 2-time winner this season, Robinson clocked the fastest immediate time in the opening run before she lost her balance and slid off course in a left turn. I got unlucky and off balance, and I pressured in a bad spot and just went face flat. Robinson said, "I'm really disappointed not to be walking away with not any points." Schifrin, who won the race in Semmering, near capital of Vienna 4 times between 2012 and 22, finished 6th in positioning, 1.45 behind Sheeb. American star, the 2018 Olympic champion, has not been on a Grand Slalom podium in her past 10 races, the longest streak in her career since her first 15 Grand Slalom races of her career without top 3 results in 2010 to 2011. Dominating slalom this season within 4 wins from as many races, Schifrin is still trying to regain her form in Grand Slalom more than a year after suffering a deep puncture wound in her side and severe trauma in her oblique muscle in a bad crash in Killington, Vermont. Schifrin's teammates Nina O'Brien and Paula Moltzen both had nasty-looking crashes. O'Brien slid off course in the first run at the Moltzen fell and hit her head on the snow. In the second run, both apparently avoiding injuries. Before the season, Austria women's team had not won a World Cup giant slalom for more than 9 years. Sheeb ended the drought last October at the season opening race, also in Austria, and added another victory in the most recent Grand Slalom in Tremblant, Quebec, 3 weeks ago. I want to continue like this. I want to focus a little bit on the Super G, she said, a slalom on the Super Hill is scheduled for Sunday. Schwartz wins Super G. Marco Schwartz has truly arrived in alpine skiing's winning circles less than 6 weeks before the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics. Until last week, the Australian all-arounder hadn't won a World Cup race for 2 years following knee and back injuries. On Saturday, he won his second race in 7 days, taking a Super G for his 8th career triumph and first in the speed event. He also won a giant slalom last Sunday in another Italian resort, Alta Badia. I had a real good run and it feels good to be back in the speed discipline as well on the top of the podium, Schwartz said. Now let's take a look at the mailbag for Sunday. Do top seeds have too much of an advantage in the playoffs? Welcome to the Sunday mailbag. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. Carmen asks, I think that the number one seed in the AFC and NFC are given too much of an advantage in the playoffs. Not only do they have the home field and play the lowest seed, they are given an extra week to prepare and recover from injuries. I believe it would make more competitive if they add another team and all teams play the same number of games. That would make the Super Bowl champion earn it. They would still have the advantage of playing the lowest seed and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Jay, it's an interesting conversation to have. It's also the reason I reiterated the point over and over again that the Bills' main goal this season is to be getting the number one seed. To your point, Carmen, it is a massive advantage. Before the NFL went to a 17 playoff for each conference in 2020, the league had the first 2 seeds, got a bye in the wild card round. That change has really hurt the Bills, who have missed out on the bye and would have been number 2 seed 4 times in a row in those 5 years. As for whether another playoff team would be added and a bye eliminated entirely, there's a lot that goes into that question. For starters, we have to examine how advantageous it has been. In 2020, the Chiefs were the number 1 seed and made it to the Super Bowl, but lost to the Buccaneers, who were the number 5 seed. In 2021, the top seeds were Green Bay and Tennessee. Neither made it to the Super Bowl, in which the Rams beat the Bengals. In 2022, the Chiefs beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl in a matchup of top seeds. In 2023, the Chiefs were the number 3 seed and beat the number 1 seed 49ers in the Super Bowl. In 2024, the number 1 seed Chiefs lost to the number 2 seed Eagles. So the 10 possible number 1 seeds, 5 of them made it to the Super Bowl and 3 of them made it, and 3 times it was the Chiefs. So half of the time the number 1 seed has made it to the Super Bowl. That's pretty significant. I discussed this with my friend Elena Getzenberg of ESPN in the Bills media room, and she argued it would be better for the playoffs to go back to 6 teams from each conference with 2 byes. That eliminates the unfair advantage of just 1 team getting a bye and makes makes qualifying for the playoffs even more of an accomplishment, which is what it should be. Of course, you've got to follow the money. Eliminating a team from the playoffs means eliminating a game, which means reduction in money, and the NFL is never going to go for that. It's far more likely what you suggest happens, Carmen, that the league's adding an 8th playoff team and eliminating a bye week completely. You could also add an 8th team to reinstitute a second bye, but that wouldn't add a game. Again, follow the money. John asks, even though wide receiver Josh Palmer is getting back from injury, why do you think Gabe Davis has been inactive the past couple of games? Jay, Bills coach Sean McDermott was asked after the game against Cleveland if Davis was being inactive for his second straight week had anything to do with the team managing his playing time coming back from knee surgery. McDermott responded, that's a decision based solely on game plan. Given the lack of production the Bills have received at their outside receivers in recent weeks, it seems to me Davis should be back in the lineup. McDermott was asked Friday about the mixing and matching of receivers and admitted it had taken longer than he would have liked to find continuity in the room. I certainly remain confident in the guys in the room, but I'm looking forward to them coming out and playing with a chip on their shoulder and getting us into a groove here, Coach said. We'll see what happens. As for run blockers at receiver, Davis and Charles Shavers would be the top. Shaquille securing Keon Coleman would be next. Brandon Cooks and Nicole Harbin are smaller receivers, so they would be at the bottom of the list. Jeff Miller asks, we have shown that we can stop the run at times, but for the most part, we are fair game able to have the ball run down our throats. I don't see how this can change in 2 games before the playoffs. This doesn't bode well at all. Do you see it making it even past 1 game? We can't depend on Josh's magic every week. Jay, the Bills are 11-4 this season with a bad run defense. Clearly, it can be overcome. This is not to say it's ideal, but by any means, it has been a consistent problem area. But it doesn't mean I think they'll be one and done in the playoffs. At the risk of sounding overly optimistic, the Bills are going to have to outscore their opponent in the playoffs. They'll need Allen to be at his absolute best. They have a ton of pressure on him to be great, but that has been that way for most of his career. Dion Dawkins, let's take a look at him. Dawkins can do it all, literally. Bills offensive tackle, finds a way to play well, be a family man, and help the community. Last week, Buffalo Bills left offensive tackle, Dion Dawkins experienced so much. Community event on Tuesday, sick on Wednesday and Thursday, back to practice on Friday, lining up against Myles Garrett, and succeeding on Sunday, starting all over on Monday, named the Pro Bowl for the 5th time following Tuesday. I can't even believe it's all happened, Dawkins said. The 8 days are a microcosm of what Dawkins does week in and week out during the season. 4-time nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, Dawkins has made a huge impact on Buffalo on and off the field. When faced with adversity this past week, he was reminded of why he does it and truly does it all. Going through things, it just shows the type of person you are, Dawkins said. You can quit and just shut down, or you can just fight through it all. And I'm glad I have the people that allow me to fight through it, and they help me fight through it all, because it's hard. It's hard being me. I promise you, it's very hard. And I'm glad that I'm the one that has to hold the weight of it, because I wouldn't want it for nobody else, because it's a tough journey. And you see, guys, and you guys see, the journey keeps getting harder. Beacon of light. When Dawkins was in 2nd grade, his family moved to a house in Rahway, New Jersey. Amid packing, Dawkins' mother, Lisa, was busy answering the doorbell. When we moved from our first apartment, everybody came out to say goodbye to Dion. People I didn't even know, Lisa Dawkins said. People came out of the woodwork to say goodbye to Dion. Because of a young age, Dion Dawkins was showing signs of who he would grow up to be. He knew his mom, Mama Docs, loved coffee. So when she gave him lunch money for school, he would sneak back into her room. He would leave coffee money on the dresser out of his lunch money, Lisa said. He was just the sweetest little boy, sweet but energetic. Dawkins was always the first one to wake up, Lisa said. And even if they went to bed early, he would still talk to anyone who would listen. You know, he really reminds me of Stewie from Family Guy, Lisa said, mimicking the chattering of the character. Hey, Mom, hey, Mom, hey, Mom, hey, Mommy. Lisa watched the way she was raised by her grandparents, and she wanted to play it forward with her own kids. Our house was always filled with people, filled with happiness. I guess it radiates. And when you treat your kids the way you grew up, I guess it grows, Lisa said. Soon she saw the happiness radiating from her son. Diana Muhammad Dawkins' fiancé started to see it too. He just smiles and people love him, Muhammad said. They just feel full of his energy. But you know, it's the same thing with his mom. His mom is the exact same way. Lisa said Dawkins isn't quite like anyone else in the family, calling him one special entity. But when Dawkins describes Lisa, there's some overlap traits that getting passed down from the Dawkins family. She's an angel, Dawkins said, facing life together. No one knows how Dawkins does what he does, including himself. I really don't know, he said. I just don't know how I balance it. Lisa says nothing surprises her anymore as her son picks up Bible and picks up all sorts of hobbies and excels in all of them. The hard part is scheduling. It's a juggle every day to get everything in line, from real estate to community to family to drifting to shoot my production team and my motorsports, to be man just trying to be the best teammate, trying to find ways to release, like trying to find ways to detach from football and just being me, because I live on energy, like I float on energy, and that fuels me, so I got to keep the energy positive, and I just keep on being Snow, wearing T-shirts with a giant picture of his fiancée as he talks. Dawkins knows his support system is a huge part of how he gets things done. Diana gets a face T, Dawkins said. She's facing life with me. The two have been growing together since Muhammad started coming to Buffalo in Dawkins' second year in the league. Over the course of our relationship, I'm learning how to be the perfect partner for her, and I've a lot of fails, Dawkins said. I have a lot of fails, but we all seem to keep battling, man, and that's all I can ask for, somebody to rock with me. He's 100% effort into everything, Muhammad said, and that's just not on the field, it's at home, too. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. NHL hockey. Saturday results. New York Rangers. Well, actually, these are... let's look at Sunday's games. I'm sorry. Montreal at Tampa Bay at 5 p.m. The Islanders at Columbus at 5 p.m. Toronto at Detroit at 7. Pittsburgh at Chicago at 7 p.m. Philadelphia at Seattle at 8 p.m. Let's take a look also at the NBA results from Friday. Washington beat Toronto 138-117. Miami 126. Atlanta 111. Boston 140. Indiana 122. Charlotte 120. Orlando 105. Chicago beat Philadelphia 109-102. Phoenix topped New Orleans 115-108. Memphis 125, Milwaukee 104, Utah 131, Detroit 129. Wow. LA Clippers 119 to Portland 103. In soccer, Saturday's results: Nottingham Forest 1, Manchester City 2, Arsenal 2, Brighton 1, Brentford 4, Bournemouth 1, Burnley 0, Everton 0, Liverpool 2, Wolverhampton 1, West Ham 0, Fulham 1, Chelsea versus Estonia Village at night. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for December 28th. We read from the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast it at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your reader today is Ron Bickelman.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of Buffalo Magazine. Following that, at noon, is the Sunday Gusto. And at 1 o'clock is the Sunday front section of the New York Times. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,